People who were about to commit suicide. What changed your mind? Story 1. I sat down, put on my favorite Futurama episode and was swinging hard from a bottle of vodka. When I felt I could do it, I put the gun in my mouth real fast and pulled the trigger. I forgot to load it. That click made me vomit and sob uncontrollably. I put the gun away and cried myself to sleep on the couch. My brother came home and saw me passed out with Futurama playing and the bottle on the floor. He took a few days off work and we just watched movies and ate chicken wings, my favorite. He doesn't know what I did, just that I was hurting. So, my drunken stupor stopped me. And that, click. Story 2. My dad come out of nowhere when I was about to jump. Scooped me up from behind and scared the hell out of me. Story 3. I had an elderly cat who had feline dementia. She would cry whenever she couldn't find me and I honestly didn't want her to live the last few months of her life scared and alone, so I stayed. She passed away a week after my 19th birthday. I think she was staying to make sure I was okay if she left. I really miss her. I had her since I was 2, but I'm okay now and I'm going to university and live in the same dorm as my cousin who I grew up with. Story 4. I realized I was going to die alone, so I called the cops instead, hoping someone would talk to me because I didn't want to be lonely. OFC, they came and took me to the hospital, almost 2 years later, with a lot of therapy, medication and a shift of the people around me. My mental state has reached a place of pure bliss and peace and I haven't thought of Szby'S for a long time. It gets better. I'm glad I made that call. Story 5. The realization that if I was going to kill myself, I could do anything and everything I ever wanted to with no consequences. If I'm going to die, then why not do the things I always wanted to first? Now I love my life every day to the fullest because there's not enough time to do everything I want to. Story 6. What changed my mind? In the moment I thought about my mom and how it would have killed her. Ever since then the only reason I haven't ended it all is my mom. I would hate for her to get that phone call and have to go through all of the trauma and trouble it would bring. That's my reason, my mom. Story 7. The song, Carry On My Wayward Son, by Kansas, if it had not played on my, now dead, local rock station back in 2002, I would not be here to read or reply to this post. Story 8. The second time someone texted me asking to hang out like 10 minutes before it was too late, and I'm in no way religious, but part of me did think maybe I wasn't supposed to die yet. At least it gave me a reason to not die for the next week, and that week gave me a chance to find another reason to stay alive until the next, and so on, I guess. My main reason for being alive now is it's significantly easier to be alive than to not be alive. If I could just shut off my heart I'd be dead years ago, but I can't. I have to actively try to die and I'm too lazy to do that. I think that's okay. Life is interesting enough, and if I walk out of the movie early I can't walk back in, so I might as well see what happens. Story 9. For the past 20 years, like clockwork, I try every 5 years. Nothing has ever really stopped me just before committing the act, but clearly interventions occur afterward while I'm dying. But I don't want to ever do it again, no matter what the fuck I'm feeling. Recently my BF, well, now ex-BF, after this incident, told me in a voice text that he wanted to kill himself, said that he felt he couldn't tell me about it because I was being mean to him at the time, and then stopped talking to me the day after he told me that. It's been a month since this happened. It actually feels like he is dead since we never talked about it or anything, and I never ever want anyone to feel how I do now. Ever. I don't want anyone who loves me feel like I would rather be dead than love them back. I don't want anyone who loves me feel guilty that they couldn't stop me, and I don't want anyone who loves me to think that they are somehow to blame. Story 10. I hit an artery and blood was everywhere. Looked like a murder scene. I sat against the wall waiting to bleed out until I thought of my niece and how devastated she would be because we are very close and she has gone through enough, she didn't need that. Story 11. I got a puppy the day after surviving my last attempt, coming up on 5 years ago. He is the only reason I'm still alive these days. No matter bad things get and how bad I want to do it. I know he needs me to take care of him. Just imagining him not being able to understand what happened to me or trying to wake up my dead body snaps me right out of it. The thought has directly interrupted the lead up to several attempts now. I just break down sobbing and hold him and tell him how much I love him instead. Every single time. Hell, just writing this caused some tears to roll down my cheeks. I just really love my dog, man. Story 12. I did this 9 years ago. I was really struggling with suicidal thoughts and was desperately trying to find a way to die, by accident, and as painless as possible. I had heard a lot about emotional support animals and my friend talked me into trying it and getting a dog. It changed my life. My dog was my world. He died this summer from brain tumor complications. I've been devastated. Despondent. And about as bad as I was 9 years ago, if not worse. I am eternally grateful for the light and the love that my dog brought to my life. But I do wish I had better spent those years addressing the underlying causes of my depression and suicidal ideation. While you are strong and in a good place, work on preparing for days when you are weak and in a bad place. Your dog loves you and needs you. They always will. And part of what they need from you is for you to love and take care of yourself as well. Story 13. Several years ago I was severely anorexic. Depression often accompanies eating disorders, and that was true in my case as well. I was never actively suicidal, but I remember feeling like I wanted to just disappear. But, like you, I had adopted a puppy about a year before my disease got to that point. Anytime I thought about death, my heart would break at the thought of leaving my boy behind. He's the reason I ultimately sought help. He turns 8 tomorrow, on Christmas, and I know for certain he saved my life. Story 14. Late to the party and I wasn't the one about to commit suicide but... When I was younger, maybe 13 or 14, I got a call from my friend's mother telling me that they had gotten in a fight and I needed to come over to calm him down. I snuck out of my house and ran over to his, knocked on his window, and after a few seconds he answered. We went on a walk, smoked cigarettes, and talked for a couple hours about nothing in particular. Pretty normal night for us. It wasn't until a couple of years ago he told me he had a pistol in his mouth when I knocked on the window. He said he was a second or two away from pulling the trigger. He didn't make a decision to change his mind when I knocked, nor did I do anything specific to change his mind. I just happened to interrupt the thought at the right moment, and it was a thought that just never came back for him. He is married and has 2 beautiful kids now. Story 15. I was in the basement, miserable with internal anguish, and decided to get it over with. I was stringing up a rope to the joists, and suddenly my sister began to come downstairs. I quickly pulled it all down and felt terribly embarrassed. I thought to myself, why am I embarrassed? I should be angry that I was disrupted, not humiliated. So, I thought it over and realized that I really didn't want to die, I just wanted the cause of my grief to go away. So the next day, I went to the college medical center and saw a doctor. I'm not sure if he was a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Anyway, 3 sessions later I felt happy again and life was good. Many times since, I've had thoughts of self-harm, but I now realize that I wanted a situation to change, not my death. So, I work on the problem differently. Also, I found out I had low thyroid levels, and that can make you very deeply depressed. Story 16. I had a flash of my children finding me. I didn't think I was good enough for something so perfect as them, but I couldn't traumatize my babies like that. My now ex-husband told me they'd all have been better off if I had gone through with it whether they found me or not when I opened up and reached out for help the next morning. I left him that day with my babies. That was 5 years ago now, and wouldn't you know, my mental health has never been better. I now realize that I wasn't unwell, I was abused. Story 17. I tried to OD on random medications my mom had from heart surgery. Prior to my attempt, I felt like my body wasn't my own because of a guy. I felt dirty, hopeless, sick, and like I'd never have a moment where I could be me again. I felt completely alone despite knowing in the back of my head that some people would feel grief from my death. I think a great fault of speaking to suicidal people is telling them how much people would care or miss them. I knew people cared, I just didn't care. I didn't care about myself or my future or my life in the present. But the second I swallowed those pills I realized how anxious I was. It felt like I made a rash decision even though I thought I knew I was utterly depressed. I can't pinpoint the exact feeling or necessarily verbalize it, but it was kinda like I was taking my own autonomy away when it was forcibly taken from me before. I didn't want to do that. I knew my future could continue to be shit, but I also knew there was a possibility it wouldn't. Like some weird Schrodinger's cat of life where I was in limbo. I didn't want to die because I wanted to see the possibilities, and I'm really fucking glad because there's truly so much beauty in life. Maybe not in capitalistic societal life, but in nature and genuine friendship. I love the people I've met since, the confidence I've gained, and the beauty I've seen. It's been rough and I know I have a propensity to slip back into that, but I guess I always have the reminder of how much better it could get now. My friend told me this quote from Carl Sagan where he describes us as living on a pale blue dot. I think I kinda love that my life is a bit meaningless in the grand cog. I don't have to be some world-changing person or care about how people view me or my body. I just want to live on this pale blue dot, taking in all its natural beauty. Story 18. My heart. My last suicide attempt was my third one. I was standing at the edge and ready to jump. For one moment, it became eerily quiet and I could only feel the wind against me. And then I heard the sound of my heart beating. I realized at that moment, even when I have given up on myself, my heart didn't. In the previous attempt, I tried to overdose and I slept for 3 days straight, only to wake up alone, also, to the sound of my heart beating. I guess, I felt like it has a life of its own and I should honor it, that my life is not just my own, it's not just what I want. But I can choose what I want to do with it. I might kill myself but I won't commit murder. I don't control the beating of my heart, is it fair for me to force it to stop? That was my last and final attempt, although the thoughts are still around and my depression still lingers. But now, every time the thought crosses my mind, I'll tell my heart, I'm tired. If you're too tired and you want to stop, let go and we can rest. But since you are still working and if you can still keep on going, I'll work on something too. It might seem weird, but it helps me to be kinder to myself. It beats without hesitation and doubt. Maybe I should start living like that too. So I did and I am, one beat, one day at a time. Story 19. I realized I didn't want to die, I just didn't want to live like this anymore. Learned that the assumptions I made as a kid were wrong, that mental health care is nothing like 1800s asylums, that my depressive thoughts weren't demons cursing me for being a sinner, that it was okay to tell my parents something felt off. I'm lucky that my family was supportive and I was able to go to therapy for free through my university, and I haven't felt suicidal for going on 3 years now. After a decade of dealing with depression, it's nice to know what joy feels like again.